Hello children, very good morning. Welcome to English class. Today let's learn something in grammar. Children, you have already learnt about verbs. So verbs are nothing but action words and the verbs are divided into two parts. So they are main verbs and the helping verbs. So this concept was already taught by Lakshmi ma'am. But in today's class, we will discuss another classification of verbs, that is finite verb and non-finite verbs. And the non-finite verbs are further classified as participle, gerund, and infinitives. So the next classification that we have to learn is finite verbs and non-finite verbs. So let us see what are finite verbs and non-finite verbs. The finite verbs are those verbs which show action and are limited by number, tense, and person. So they are limited in the sense, see, usually in a subject, in a sentence, the subject and the verb they go on with an agreement. So whenever the subject changes its number, whether it's a singular or plural number, when I mean number, it means singular and the plural of the subject. When I say tense, it is the present, past, and the future tense. And the person, so there are three persons: first person, second person, and the third person. So first person is I and we, second person is you and yours, third person is he, she, it, they. So whenever there is a change in these uh, parameters of the subject, so definitely the verb is also going to change. So such kind of verbs are called as finite verbs. So I mean to say these verbs are going to show the action, and along with that they are going to change with the change in the number, tense, and the person of the subject. So let us see some examples here. I drink coffee every day. She drinks coffee every day. They drink coffee every day. So in this three sentences, you can see that the subject is varying. So I was a first person, she and they are the third persons. So with the change in the person, you can see that the verb drink has also changed from drink to drinks, again drinks to drink. So these verbs which are going to change with the change in the person. So I have just given the example of person here. I will next show you with the change in the number and tense how the verbs are going to change. So these kind of verbs are called as finite verbs. Now let's go to the next verb, kind of verb, that is non-finite verb. Non-finite verbs are verbs that do not show the action. The most important thing about the non-finite verbs is they do not show the action and are not limited by number, tense, and person. So they do not change with the changes in the number, tense, and the person of the subject. Let's see the examples. I love to swim. She loves to swim. They love to swim. So you can observe in these sentences there are two kinds of verbs. So one is the main verb and the other one is the second verb. So love is the first verb. It is the main verb here. And you can see that the verb love has changed to loves and again to love. So these verbs which are changing with the change in the subject are called as the finite verbs. Whereas you can see that the verb to swim remains the same in all the three sentences with the change in the subject. So these kind of verbs which do not show the action and also which do not change with the change in the subject or the number, tense, and the person of the subject, we call them as non-finite verbs. So just now I told you the finite verbs are not going, are going to change with the change. So let us see the examples here. So the verb changing as per the change in the tense. Let us see here. I play cricket every day. I played cricket yesterday. I will play cricket tomorrow. You can see that these three sentences are in three different tenses. So if the first one is in present, second past, and the third one is in the future tense. So you can observe that the verb play has changed from play to played, from played to will play. So these kind of verbs which change from with the change in the tense of the sentence is called as a finite verbs. And you can also observe that they are also just changing with the change in the tenses here. So these kind of verbs, and most importantly they are also showing the action here. So I, who is to the doing doer of the action here, I play cricket. So that is why these are called as finite verbs. Now let us see with the changes in the person how the verbs are going to change. I run a mile daily, he runs a mile daily, they run a mile daily. So you can observe that I, first person, here he, they, third persons. So with the change in the person, it has changed from run to runs, runs to run. So these are finite verbs and they're also showing the action. Now coming to the next one, so how the verbs are changing according to the number. So you can see that the number, I told you what is the number. Number means the sense singular and plural form of the subject, that is the noun. So here you can see apple is singular, apples are plural here. Apple is red in color, apples are red in color. So with the change in the number of the subject, there is change in the verb. Is has changed to are. So these are called as the finite verbs. So now let us see the next examples of non-finite verbs. So it's a mixture, like you can find even the finite verbs here. The words that are underlined are the finite verbs, whereas the verbs that are circled are the non-finite verbs. Let us see how. See, you can see in the sentence, Akash finds his office at a walking distance. So Akash and his friend find their office at a walking distance. Akash found his office at a walking distance. Akash will find his office at a walking distance. So in these sentences, the verb finds, find, found, will find are all the main verbs and they have changed with the changes in the tense of the sentences. Whereas the verb walking remained the same throughout the sentences. All the four sentences, you can see that the word walking has remained the same, and so they are called as the non-finite verbs, and moreover they are not showing any action. They are just telling that it is at a walking distance. So there is no action performed by anybody in these sentences, and so they are called as non-finite verbs. So just now we have learned that the finite verb and the non-finite verb. So now there is a further classification with non-finite verb, that is they are gerund, participle and infinitive. So let us see what are those. So first of all, so this use of non-finite verbs function as noun, adjective or adverb in a sentence. They do not function as verb. So the most important thing that we have to learn about this non-finite verbs are, so they are the special kind of verbs. I would like to call them as special kind of verbs which do not show the action, which do not perform any action, but still they are going to be called as special verbs because they are going to perform other part of the function. So let us see what are they, and I would like to call these non-finite verbs as imposters. So it's a new word for you children, imposters. So what do you mean by imposter? An imposter is a person who pretend to be some other person. So let me give you an example. You think that there is a person in front of your door, dressed himself as a policeman. He says that he wants to search your house, something like that. Then after he enters the house and he tries to steal something from your house, you will realize that he is not a policeman, but he is dressed himself as a policeman. He is actually a thief. So he is called as an imposter. So similarly, these non-finite verbs are also the people in disguise. So how the policeman was in disguise, right? The thief was in disguise as policeman. Similarly, these non-finite verbs are also going to behave. They look like verbs, but they are not verbs and they do not perform the action of this work of a verb. So let us see how. So they are classified as gerunds, participles and infinitives. So let us see what is this use of non-finite verbs. Non-finite verbs function as noun, adjective or adverb in a sentence. They do not function as verb. So the most important thing is they do not function as verb. But what is the function of them then? So they are going to function like a noun, adjective or adverb in a sentence. So they are going to function as noun. Let us see the example. Swimming is a good exercise. You just observe this sentence. See, whenever I want to say that the action is performed, that is, whenever when I want to say that ing form is a verb, then always remember that the verb should be preceded by the helping verb. See, for example, when I say, I am teaching English. So you can say that teaching is a verb there because it is preceded by the helping verb am. Yes, so I am teaching is a verb because it is performing the action and also it is preceded by the helping verb am. But here you can see that the swimming is not preceded by any helping verb. So this swimming is not the action performed by anybody, but it is the name of the action. So what is the action? Swimming. The name of the action is given here as swimming. So it is acting like a noun, and so it is called by one name. I'll come to that next. In the next slide, I will be teaching you this. Function as adjective. So the non-finite verbs also function as adjective. So the sleeping puppy is white in color. See, you children, as a children, you just can think that whenever you see the ing form of the word, you will blindly think that this must be a verb. So it is not so, children. You have come to higher classes now, so you should know the difference between the verb and the non-finite verbs. So here you can see this: the sleeping puppy is white in color. So here the verb ing sleeping is just telling more about this puppy. What kind of a puppy it is? It is the sleeping puppy. It is not telling that exactly the action that is performed by this puppy. It is just describing this puppy, sleeping puppy. So this is acting like an adjective. Ing form of the verb acting like an adjective. Let us see the next example. Mila went to UK to study. So in this sentence, you can see that the main verb is went here. There is another verb preceded by the word to study. So this is again another form of the verb. So this is acting like an adverb. So where did Nila go to, why did Nila go to UK? To study. So you're going to get the answer as to study, and it is acting like an adverb. So these non-finite verbs which are behaving like a noun, adjective and adverb are called by different names. So those are, so whenever the ing form of the verb behaves like a noun, we call it as a gerund. So this is a new topic for you. So whenever ing form of the verb acts like a noun, then we call it as gerund. And whenever ing form of the verb acts like an adjective, so then we call it as participle. Then with the infinitive is nothing but the base form of the verb that is preceded by to, we call it as infinitives. So I'll repeat it once again. So whenever ing form of the verb is acting or functioning as a noun, we call it as gerund. Whenever ing form of the verb is acting like an adjective, we call it as participle. Under participle, we are going to specifically say it as present participle, because there is another division, classification is there. Participles are divided into present participle and past participle. So ing form of the verb acting like an adjective is called as present participle, whereas past participle, they are the third form of the verb which you are very much familiar with it already. See, we say three forms of the verb: present tense, past tense and the past participle. So the regular verbs, when I say walk, walked. Yes, cook, cooked. So the past tense form of the verb is got by just adding ed, and the past participle also remains the same, cooked only. Yes, walked itself. So this kind of words which are going to act like an adjective are called as past participle. So I will make it clear with many examples. So now infinitive. So blindly you can just say whenever to plus base form of the verb is there, you can say that it is an infinitive. So let's go to the next example now. You can see here the gerund. So let me take the first example of gerund. Fishing is a lovely activity for a summer day. Children, I'm going to give you here one more tip how to identify whether it is a verb, whether it is a continuous form of the verb or a gerund or a participle. So infinitive, no problem. Whenever it is to plus verb, then it is called as infinitive. So now how to identify this one, I will be telling you now. So in this sentence, you can see that fishing is a lovely activity. So always remember, when we want to say that the given ing word is acting like a verb, then it should always have a helping verb. So is or are or was or were must be there. So otherwise you cannot call it as a verb. You cannot call that word acting like a verb. So now there is no helping verbs in this case. So this word either must be a gerund or a participle, right? Yes. So that too present participle, because I told you only present participle will have ing form. You should not get confused with the gerund and participle, children. So both are going to be with ing, but the only difference is this that I will be telling you now. So here you cannot see that there is no helping verb, so it is not a verb. must be either a gerund or a participle. So always a participle will have, because we say participle acts like an adjective. So whenever we want to say that it is an adjective, it always needs a noun in front of it. It should be followed by a noun. See, when I want to describe something, if just to say pretty, what does it mean? I should say pretty girl, right? Beautiful lady. So we need a subject, we need a noun to describe the word. So similarly, so here after fishing, you cannot find anything here. There's no noun at all. So it is naturally, there is no noun here. It is not describing anything, but it is just the acting like a noun. And so it is a gerund here. Fishing is a lovely activity for a summer day. I hope you have followed. Next, let's go to the next one, that is participle. So we have learned that there are two kinds of participles, present participle, past participle. Let me just take the present participle. The smell of baking cookies drove us mad. Yes. So now here the verb here is the word is baking. So is there a helping verb behind it? No. So there is no helping verb. So it cannot be a verb. Then do we have a noun after it? Yes, cookies is noun here. So it is telling more about these cookies, right? What kind of cookies? Baking cookies. So it is acting like an adjective, and so, and that too with the ing form. So it is present participle, right? Next, a penny saved is a penny earned. So in both these verbs, you can see that ed, it is a third form of the verb that is used, right? So it is the past participle. Infinitive, no doubt at all. Whenever the verb, the base form of the verb is preceded by to, then it is infinitive. So let's see some more examples now. So what is a participle? So actually, we are going to learn in detail about participles, children. So this is just the introduction what I have given you about gerunds and infinitives. But in today's class, we are going to learn in detail about these participles. So what is a participle? See, I can call this participle by another word, that is verbal adjective. So why are we calling it as verbal adjective? Because this is a verb, but behaving like an adjective. So it is ing form of the verb functioning as an adjective. So certain points should be remembered when we say participle. It is not the main verb in a sentence. So it is not the main. Remember this one. And it does not function as a verb in a sentence. That is also another important point to be remembered. It functions as adjective in a sentence and sometimes also as an adverb. So these things you have to remember. Now, participles are mainly divided into present participle, past participle, perfect participle, but we are not discussing about perfect participle today. Only these two we are discussing. So, present participle, as I've already discussed, it is formed by adding ing to the base form of the verb. Example, walk plus ing, cry plus ing. They do not show any action but act as an adjective. Let us see some examples now. I like a dancing doll. He jumped from a running train. Arun sold his working machine. India is a developing country. A smiling man always looks better than a crying man. So you can observe that in all these sentences, the words that are in blue color are all the finite verbs, and also they are the main verbs in the sentence. Okay. But the words that are underlined and also they are in red color, they are all describing the noun. You can observe that each of the word has a noun in front of them. Yes, here doll, train, machine, country, man, and man here also. So it is telling more about this noun. Dancing doll. What kind of doll? Dancing doll. What kind of train? Running train. What kind of machine? Working machine. Country? Developing country. Smiling man? Crying man. So all these are functioning like an adjectives, and so they are called as present participle. Yes. So now what is past participle? So already we have discussed again some examples here. Past participle is a word that is a form from a verb. We are going to get ed, d, en or n. So here's painted skin. So we are describing this skin. What kind of a skin? Painted skin. So, but it is the third form of the verb, that is past participle. Similarly here also I have forgotten my lines. So forgotten, forget, forgot, forgotten. The third form of the verb, that is past participle. It is acting like an adjective, and so it is past participle here. Now, there are examples for different present participle and past participle. Let us see here. The boring speaker talked for hours. The boring speaker. So you can see that it is ing form of the verb and it is describing the speaker, and so it is present participle. Whereas in the second sentence, the bored audience fell asleep. So here also the word bored is describing the audience and it is ended with ed and it is past participle. Again, in the next sentence, I read an interesting book. What kind of a book I read? Interesting. So it is describing and so it is acting like an adjective and so it is present participle. Here, the magazine receives support from interested readers. What kind of readers? Interested. So it is describing the readers and that is why it is acting like an adjective and it is past participle. Now, there are some examples with mixed sentences here. You have to identify either they are gerund, participle, and infinitive. So each one I'll be explaining you now. See, in the very first sentence, you can see that swimming is a good exercise. So always whenever an exercise is given to you to identify a gerund or a participle or a verb, it is better to always go in a stepwise. See, when we want to find out whether it is a gerund or a participle, first you see whether we have a helping verb here. No, we don't have helping verb. So it must be either a gerund or a participle. So when we want to prove that it is a participle, we need a noun here, right? We want to describe it. So there is no noun here. So it is naturally gerund. So it is behaving like a noun here. Swimming is a good exercise. Actually, it is not showing any action here, but it is telling the name of the action and behaving like a noun. Here, the second sentence, swimming ducks are fun to watch. Now you should just analyze in a proper way. Do we have a helping verb here? No. So it is not a verb. It can be either a gerund or a participle. Do we have a noun after this word? Yes, we have the word ducks here. So it is telling more about this ducks, right? Swimming ducks. What kind of ducks? Swimming ducks. So it is acting like an adjective and so it is present participle. I hope you're all following, children. Next, we are planning to visit the thundering waterfalls and go boating. So now clearly observe, children, this sentence. We are planning. So this is ing form of the verb which is preceded by a helping verb. Yes. So what is it? It is definitely a verb. What kind of a verb? Present continuous form of the verb. Right. Next, thundering waterfalls. So ing of form of the word is there. Do we have a helping verb here? No. So it can be either a gerund or a participle. Now, do we have a noun in front of it? Yes, we have a noun which is describing by this word thundering. So it is behaving like an adjective. So when it behaves like an adjective, it is present participle. And go boating. So now you can observe that even the word go is also a verb here, but it is not a helping verb. It is an independent main verb, isn't it? So boating is not describing anything. There is no noun in front of it. It's not describing. So it can just function like a noun and so it is a gerund. And the last sentence is like this. On finding no one to play with, the child began crying and his caring mother got him an ice cream. So on finding, do we have a helping verb? No. Do we have a noun here? No. Either this is either a verb nor a acting like an adjective, but it is the noun here and so it is gerund. To play. So there is no confusion at all because to plus base form of the verb is infinitive. Next, the child began crying. So here also there is a verb here, but it is not a helping verb. So crying and is there any noun here after it? No. So it is behaving like a noun here and so it is gerund. And the last one, caring mother. So you can see that mother noun is there and caring, it is describing mother. So caring is definitely present participle. I hope you have understood, children. So we have learned that there are two divisions and other two divisions of verbs today, that is finite verb and non-finite verb. And the finite verbs are those verbs which show the action and which change with the change in the person, number and the tense of the sentence. And non-finite verbs are the verbs which do not show the action and they do not change also with the change in the person, number and the tense of the subject. So non-finite verbs are divided into participle, gerund and infinitives. So just now we have discussed with different examples. I hope you have understood. If you have any doubts, you can clarify with me. And we have come to the end of today's session. And thank you very much, children.